welcome to the Royal Albert Hall and to a very special occasion. Tonight's performance of the Verdi Requiem is both a memorial to Diana, Princess of Wales, and a tribute to the life and work of Sir Georg Solti, who was to have conducted this performance, but who died suddenly last Friday, a month before his 85th birthday. Sir Colin Davis has generously stepped in to conduct tonight, and he's joined by London Voices, the London Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, and a quartet of international soloists. Now, Sir George was one of the greatest musicians of our time. He knew and worked with composers like Bela Bartok, Richard Strauss and Benjamin Britten, and such conductors as Arturo Toscanini and Bruno Walter. Solti was music director of the Royal Opera Covent Garden for a decade from 1961. In 1969, he became music director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, a post that he held for almost a quarter of a century. And it was on this night last year, the penultimate night of the Proms, that he gave a memorable performance of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with that orchestra in the Royal Albert Hall. The Verdi Requiem was both the Princess of Wales's favourite piece of classical music, part of which was sung at her funeral last Saturday, and a work with which Sir George was particularly associated. Giuseppe Verdi was a self-confessed unbeliever, so perhaps it seems a bit surprising that the foremost composer of Italian opera should write a religious work. He completed the Requiem in 1874, and it's dedicated to the memory of Alessandro Manzoni, a revolutionary writer and pillar of Italian nationalism. Verdi admired Manzoni passionately, and maybe he intended his Requiem to stand as a memorial to the great romantic ideal of the Italian unification movement, as much as a liturgical mass for the dead. In his choice of settings for the Requiem, Verdi naturally concentrated on the most suggestive and dramatic, as you'd expect from an opera composer. The piece has 7 sections. The first, Requiem Aeternam, establishes the mood and introduces the 4 soloists. The Dies Irae, which evokes the Day of Judgment, takes up almost half the score, and Verdi uses all the theatrical gestures familiar from his operas to bring it to life, including offstage brass fanfares. The remaining movements are the Offertorium, deliver the souls of the faithful departed from the torments of hell, the Sanctus, the only movement that doesn't have soloists, the Agnus Dei, and the Lux Aeterna, may eternal light shine upon them, O Lord. Finally, the Libera Me, deliver me, O Lord, from eternal death. And in this movement, the music of the Dies Irae makes a shattering reappearance, Verdi's personal, very dramatic gesture, underscoring the fragility of all human hopes. And poignantly, the last time the Verdi Requiem was performed at the Proms was in the presence of the Princess of Wales at the opening of the 1992 season here. Now, the great combined forces of London Voices and the London Symphony Chorus, together with the London Symphony Orchestra, are assembled on the Royal Albert Hall stage, and they welcome their guest leader tonight, Gordan Nikolic, who takes his place. And following him onto the stage is the director of the BBC Proms and controller of BBC Radio 3, Nicholas Kenyon, who's going to make a short announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Georg Solti, who was to have conducted tonight's concert, was one of the very greatest and most inspiring musicians of our time. We remember him tonight as he would want to have been remembered, in music. It was typical of his generosity of spirit that when I spoke to him last week, he wished to dedicate this concert to the memory of the Princess of Wales, who loved Verdi's Requiem. We now, with sadness and with admiration, dedicate it to them both, and I am grateful to Sir Colin Davis for agreeing to conduct it. Thank you.
Sir Colin, of course, a perfect choice for the role tonight, as someone who knew Sir George so well, succeeded him at Covent Garden, and in a sense whose orchestra this is. He's their principal conductor. Now tonight's soloists appear: the American soprano Michelle Kreider, the Russian mezzo-soprano Olga Borodina, the German bass René Pape, and finally the American tenor Frank Lepardo. And with them, the familiar figure of Sir Colin Davis, who bows low to the audience and takes his place to conduct Verdi's Requiem.